Tim Leo, Montgomery and Associates.
Welcome.
Justin
Stewart,
Bell, also with. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
This is Justin Bell, also with Montgomery and Associates.
Glad you're with us.
Ben Stewart, Roseland Community Service District.
And welcome. Okay, we missed one item was brought to my attention. You have our pledge of allegiance, Director Mercy. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for bringing it to my attention. And next item, number 5, public comments. Does anybody would like to address the board? If the item is not further on the agenda, now's the time to do so. Okay, item number 6, adoption of agenda. That's a board order. 6A-1. If you've had a chance to review that and look at it, a motion would be in order.
Mr. President, this is Rob. I move approval of Board Order 6A1, the adoption of the agenda.
We have a motion by Director Parrish. We have a second.
Director Miller seconds.
Second by Director Miller. There's no further questions or comments. Madam Secretary, we're going to have a roll call.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, motion carried. Okay, moving right along, that'll bring us to item number 7, consent calendar. We have 3 items on there. And one is the approval of the minutes of March 25th. The other item, 8-1, is a ratification of Exhibit D, performance review of our board secretary. And the next item is resolution of amendment number 2 regarding our general manager. There's no further questions or comments. The motion would be in order.
Mr. President, this is Drew. I'll move approval.
We have a motion by Director Mercy. Second. We have a second by Director Van Dam. There's no further questions or comments. Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried, so ordered. Okay, moving right along from this, next item number 8, the Finance Committee. Director Dias is chairman of that committee. Keith, we'll turn it over to you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The Finance Committee met August 9th. And one of the first things we want to discuss is item 8A1, consideration and possible action to accept and file the check register list for the period of March 27, 2025 through April 9, 2025. And I think that Matt would like to go over some of those items with us.
All right. Thank you, Director Dias, and good evening, board. Sorry I couldn't be there in person, but I am in a room with Directors Paris and Miller. So as Director Dias said, we met last week as a finance committee, and we went through the checklist in detail that starts on page 16 of your agenda packet. A couple of the highlights on page 16, item number 1 is our fixed monthly payment to Department of Water Resources based on our statement of charges for just over $1.5 million. We also went through items 4 through 12, which are the various credit card statements for the various staff managers. We went through that with the Finance Committee. We discussed the payment to Palmdale Water District and reviewed that agreement and high-level agreement with Palmdale Water District regarding payment for treatment of water that we delivered to Acton service area. Those were kind of the highlights. Justin Livesay, our engineering manager, went through in detail with the Finance Committee the various contracts associated with the High Desert Water Bank Program, all of which are reimbursed by Metropolitan Water District. And that is on page 21 and 22 of your packet. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions on any items that stand out to the board and provide more detail.
Is there any further questions of the board members? Okay, a motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion, we approve Board Order 8A1. This is Keith.
We have a motion by Director Dias. Second. Director Van Dam, we have a second. There's no further questions or comments. Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried and so ordered. Yeah, thank you.
And now we'll move along to item 8A2, consideration and possible action to accept and file the treasurer's report for the period ending March 31st, 2025. And if Teresa is available, I think she will present this item.
Thank you, Director Dias. Good evening, board members. This is the treasurer's report for March, and the average yield to maturity for the total portfolio for March was 4.444%, which was down 0.026% from February. Average days to maturity for the total portfolio was 229 days, or approximately 8 months. And total cash and investments at March 31st was 160.
We're getting
What?
we're getting some interference. Somebody can check.
Yeah, it's muted. Sorry.
Okay. Okay, Teresa, hopefully you're.
Which was up about 2 million from the prior month. And I would be happy to answer any questions.
Everything appears to look pretty good.
Teresa, this is Rob. Somebody was really excited about your report.
Okay, is there any further questions or comments from Teresa? To Teresa? If not, a motion would be in order.
Mr. President,
A2,
I'll move approval.
we have a motion from
Drew.
Director Mercy,
Second.
a second from Director Van Dam. And see if there's nothing further. Madam Secretary, we could have a roll call.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried and so ordered. Thank you, Teresa. That brings us down to our last item in Finance Committee, 8A3.
Yes, we discussed the purchase order with Sierra Construction and excavation for a valve installment on the Phillips Lab feeder in the not to exceed amount of $46,900. And I believe Operations Manager Bozigian will make a report.
Thank you, Keith. Yeah, we have one item, one purchase order today, as Keith said. We have a couple slides. We went over with finance and they thought a couple slides might be helpful. So the Phillips Lab pump station is located on the east end of Edwards Air Force Base. And we take treated water from our north feeder, we wheel it through boron system to this pump station, and then pump it about almost 400 feet up to tanks up at the Phillips Lab, or rocket site as it used to be called. So this slide is the inside of the pump station. We have 3 pumps there. And the next slide will show you where we're going to put these valves. don't think this mouse is working. Holly, maybe you could point. Okay, so that's the fenced in area is where our pump station is. That black line is our pipeline. The red is where the existing valve is. That valve is the original valve. It's stuck in the open position. And we thought instead of replacing that valve, which is on base property, which is always problematic getting permission to go on the property, we thought, why don't we just leave that valve stuck in the open position and install a new valve where that green dot is inside of our fence line. So that's what this job is. They're going to excavate, we're going to drain the line, they're going to install a valve, and we'll be able to isolate the pump station when we need to do maintenance. We did put out, we did contact 3 pipeline contractors, Sierra Construction, who's done a lot of work for Avek, WM Lyles, who we're all familiar with, and Nicholas, who we're also familiar with. Nicholas, this is really too small for them, so they decided not to bid. And WM Lyles is very busy with the high-speed rail, so they kind of threw a big number at it. But Sierra Construction was pretty much in the ballpark. We budgeted $60,000 for this project. They came in at $46,900. So we would recommend, or we would ask that the board support awarding this contract to Sierra Construction to get this job done. Be happy to answer any questions.
I had a question, John. When was the start date and the completion date on that?
Well, start date will be once we award the bid. So that should be hopefully within a couple weeks. And they're going to procure the materials, and we're hoping that it's done probably by end of June. We have to coordinate with Rocket Site to when they can be down for about 3 days. So we're hoping by end of June we can get this whole thing done.
And that other valve's holding in place?
Yeah, it's a plug valve. So, you know, once they stick, they don't move, they're done. So yeah, we're gonna abandon it in place. So it shouldn't give us any problems.
Thank you.
Okay, is there any further questions from John? It looks like it's something that should be done, so,
I'll make a motion. We approve board order 8A3. This is Keith.
we have a motion from Director Dias.
I'll
Mr.
second.
President, I second that motion. Ms. Rob.
I think we had a Director Mercy. If there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary, if we could have a roll call.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried, so ordered. Yeah, thank you, John.
Thank you.
Okay, that'll bring us down to Water Projects Committee, and Director Miller is chairman of that committee. Audrey?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. Yes, we met, our committee met, and we have these project updates for information only. And Senior Engineer Roberts will take the ball on this one.
Thank you, Director Miller. Good evening, board. Couple updates for you. First one being for the Leona Valley tank. As you recall, that's a 1 million gallon tank, and we're rehabilitating it inside and out. To date, we've spent about 1.4 million of the $1.9 million contract with Cal Sierra Construction. And we have a coating inspector on the job as well, CSI Services, who's used about 18,000 of our $82,000 budget. To date, we've installed a temporary water system, removed all of the interior coating, and then recoated it with a new epoxy, and then have got started on some of the exterior modifications as well. Moving forward, we're going to be working on the outside, getting rid of all the temporary system, cleaning up the site. And then with this contract, we have a 1 year and 3 year warranty where the contractor will come back out, take a look at the inside and make sure everything's holding up. Schedule wise, they are trying to wrap up this month, maybe a little bit into June, just depending on the site cleanup. For our photos, we have kind of just a step-by-step of what the contractor's done. I'll go through them quickly here. But this is them building the temporary pad for the 3 tanks that we're using. We've been operating very successfully off of those since January. Slide. This is the inside. You can see photo on the left is right when we first opened up, and then some of the rust and different roof structure on the top right. Bottom left, they're working to chip out the old coal tar, which was probably up to 1/2 inch thick layer. So they get in there with chipping hammers, chip it all down, and then sweep it up and shovel it out of the tank. Once they got done with that, they, the next one. Well, they got started with blasting. So you can see the nice shiny steel versus the black of the tar. The photo on the top right is blasting in between the roof plate and the rafter. And then the mirror photo on the bottom left shows you a little bit of what he's going after there. So they're trying to fit in that small 1 or 2 inch gap that they wedged to get all of those black little dots out. It took them quite a long time. They spent majority of their time just on the tops of these, but they were very meticulous with it and ensured we got a good quality job done. And then a nice photo of the blast. So we also did a structural inspection to make sure everything looked basically up to condition for how we would have expected it. And ultimately, the consensus was that it was in very good shape. We did look at every rafter, and the webbing, which is the strong part, was in pretty good condition. There was a little bit of corrosion on the top flanges, but nothing that needed to be addressed or taken care of. And it looked remarkable for being almost 50 years old. We also did a 1 square foot test on the floor to see the thickness and look for any holes or thin spots in the floor. There's something like 3,000 or 4,000 different spots that they actually went down and took a test at, and every single one of them came back at in an acceptable range. So we didn't have any bad spots in the floor either. Well, that all sounds good, but there was about 40 what we call earthquake rods, 44 of them, that connect the rafters together and give the tank some bracing in the case of an earthquake. So each one of those rods was in bad shape. Some of them were hanging down. We took those out, put in brand new ones, so it should be back up to original condition. Then the fun part, they got to coating. They did a stripe coat on all the weld seams with a brush and a roller. So they went through every corner, every edge, they touched that up, and then they got to spraying. The spray pump they used is in the top right. It's a very complex machine, but basically it heats the coating, sends it through the gun, and mixes it at the gun, which he has there in his hand. So that's a application on the floor. We were going for about 20 to 40 mils, which is a very thick coating application and should give us years of life. Also, to make sure we have a good coating, we want to make sure there's no holes or pinholes or damage. So they do what's called holiday testing, where they run a wire brush over the paint, and the wire brush has an electrical current in it. And if the wire brush can connect with the tank wall, then we know there's a thin spot and it burns through the coating. So they go back and touch up those spots. That was done for the entire interior, even the areas that don't touch the water surface. And then this is kind of the end result. So left, before, and after.
It's so amazing to see that. We could have a party in there before we put water in there.
Yeah, we missed our chance. It's unfortunately full now. So.
Oh, darn.
Swim party.
So I had a question. What's the warranty on this tank?
3 years.
3 years. How long did that first tank last?
47.
47 years?
Yeah.
Will we get that out of this tank?
The advertised lifespan is 25 to 30 for this. 47 years was an incredibly long time. That well exceeded its life. Yeah.
Did a good job.
Yeah, whoever did the original coating did a fantastic job.
Right.
That's it for this project. All right. Next one is the west feeder inspection. If you recall, we have had a few leaks on a 36-inch portion of this pipeline along Gaskell Road. We contracted with Pure Technologies to do an electromagnetic scan of the pipe and identify any bad locations, and then do a video inspection as well. They're working at it. They started in March. Unfortunately, had some technical breakdowns, so they had to leave the site, work on their robot, and then come back to site. And they should be wrapping up. They hope for tomorrow. So we're on target to finish up this week. When I put this slide together, they'd completed about 4,000 feet, but in the last couple of days, they've completed quite a bit more. So we're almost up to 18,000 with just half a mile left to go. Preliminary results for the first 4,000 feet they put together came back really good. We identified one bad location where there was about 70% of the wall was lost, but the rest of the pipe seemed to be in pretty good shape. They're going to keep working on that and should have a final report to us with condition engineering by June. There's a few photos for this one as well. That's just the map reminding you where it is, 140th to 100. And then this is them on site. So the robot is on the top left. They crane it into the manhole and then complete the assembly inside, which is what the bottom left looks like. That array with the thing with all the fingers has 26 sensors, I believe, and that's what takes all of the readings. And then the photo on the right shows you our pipeline, and it actually looks pretty clean and in good shape. But that photo on the bottom right happens to be where they found the one bad spot. So if we just did a video inspection, you would have never seen that there was a thin coating or the thin steel. So it's actually right where that word west is at, is the one location they identified.
And Joe, that's done with electrolysis or something like that, right?
It's electromagnetic. So there's it sends a signal through a device, and then I don't entirely know how it works, but it comes back and then is grabbed by those sensors and tells them in some sort of code that what we're looking at. So they can put that in a program and interpret the results.
Yeah, so how thin or thick the walls are, or if there's flaws, right?
Yeah, the one spot they found was about a square foot of area that was damaged.
What's the repair process?
That depends on how much we find. If it's just one spot like this, we'll dig down, chip off the mortar on the outside, and probably weld the patch plate on. If it's a handful of spots on a piece of pipe, we'll take that piece of pipe out. This will let us fix it before it becomes a big issue.
I had a question, Joe.
Mm-hmm.
What caused the problem?
That is something we're hoping to find out when they finish the report. We don't know.
We were kind of thinking it was because of the concrete layer that is over the pipe.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, this is real similar to every one of our pipes. Why this one in particular is having some issues, it's hard to tell.
It'd be nice to try to pinpoint what the cause of the problem is, so we don't go back there again.
Exactly.
When they're putting that pipe in, I don't know if they chipped it.
Yeah, it could have been installation. Another theory is there's a lot of solar sites nearby for that one, so maybe some straight currents are corroding the pipe. Another one is it's just our largest raw water line, so maybe something in our treatment process, we're adding the right kind of chemical and taking good care of our pipes there, but our raw water line doesn't fit that. So we'll see what they come back with. That's it for this project. All right, and then third one is our maintenance facility. We work with AV Engineering. They are designing a building and doing the civil work for us here at the Fort Hill plant. We're done with the siting study. We did geotechnical, did some utility borings, and they're working on their grading plans right now, roughly about 60%. They're going to move into final design, and then they will help us bid out the project to select a building manufacturer and designer and come up with the final product. We're looking for them to be done June or July of this year. I have one map showing just where the site's going to be here. Look at it real quick. Dark gray is the building. The big white circle is our buried Clearwell Avenue N being up to the top of the page. A rough layout of the site. All right, and final job is the Pacific Steel Group turnout. If you remember, that'll be a 10-inch turnout off the central feeder. We signed a water service agreement with them in June of last year. They're working on their final design, about 99% right now, and they're starting to get into material procurement. Some items are long lead, so it'll take almost a year, it sounds like, for them to get all that material. But in the next few months, we want to get started with, they want to get started with a temporary water service, so that way they can get going on construction. And that's
What's that look? Is that the one off Sierra Highway?
Sierra Highway and Sauk Road, about 5 miles north of Roseman.
So they're almost complete with that project?
With the design portion. They've got a long ways to go building the turnout, and then they have to really break ground on their construction once they get water.
Is that where that old block plant, desert block?
Yes, I believe it's across the street from it. Yeah. And then this next slide has a photo of, well, not a photo, but a map of our central feeder, north being to the right. They're going to bore under the railroad and then build a meter site for us on their property. We'll have access to it through a roadway and easements.
How many acres is that on?
Ooh, it's a big site. I know they have 80 acres of solar panels, but the whole site is quite a bit larger than that. And that'd be it.
Okay, well, appreciate it.
Yep, thank you.
And there's no action item. This is all informational.
Informational.
Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, we appreciate it. And we'll move on to item number executive committee. And Matt, I'm going to turn that over to you.
All right, thank you, President Lane. Good evening. So this item was discussed briefly with the executive committee a couple weeks ago. It's to consider, for consideration and possible action on a proposal from Bueller Environmental to assist Avek with preparing a grant application for completion of the SNP Phase 2 project. And Peter Thompson, our assistant GM, put some slides together, and I'll turn it over to him to go through this in detail, and I can support him.
All right, thank you, Matt. Good evening, President Lane, board members. So in our interactions with Mark Bueller, the principal for Bueller Environmental, we went through SNP Phase 2 and also compared it to what was with the Prop 4 grant that's available right now. What we found is that there's a lot of available money for projects like the SNP Phase 2. We check off a lot of good boxes. SNP Phase 2 improves water quality. It helps with drought preparedness, climate and seismic resiliency, and most importantly, it's shovel ready. So I'm sure you're aware, we're nearing the end of the design for SNP Phase 2. Should be completed no later than Q3 2025. So that is a really big advantage in applying for grant funding. We're currently looking at targeting $60 million to fully cover the cost of the SNP Phase 2 project and account for any inflation that we might encounter along the way. We are highly recommending having professional grant application services just to help expedite the application and also increase our odds of being awarded. It's going to be very competitive with the Prop 4 grant funding, and we have a distinct advantage in being shovel ready. We want to take advantage of that by submitting early. All right, thank you, Holly. So just a brief look at Mark's qualifications. He does have 46 years in the water industry. He served as 10 years as the general manager for Willow Springs Water Bank. So he is familiar with the Antelope Valley and the interconnection with Avek. He's had 6 successful grant applications in the hundreds of millions of dollars. 3 of those were local with the Willow Springs Water Bank. And in the proposal that he submitted, he showed a strong understanding of the SNP 2 project and Prop 4 and what we need to do in order to qualify for those funds. So tonight, what we're seeking is authorization for general manager to enter into an agreement with Bueller Environmental for not to exceed amount of $75,000 to help us complete that application process and apply for grants under Prop 4. And with that, we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Okay, we have a board order on this.
I had one question.
Yeah.
We tried to get a grant on this project before.
We've actually successfully received grant funding for this project before on the planning phase of it. So, and I know someone will have the right number, but I think it's close to $7 million.
Yeah, that's right, Pete. It's a little over 6 million. I think 6.3 million total, Director Van Dam, that we currently have secured for this project.
Now, did we have to use that up within a time frame?
There is a time frame. We do have plenty of time right now, but we'll be a small portion of that grant, 6.3 million, was for the design, which we were using to pay for the design. The remaining 5 million has to go towards construction. So we can only use the grant funds if we proceed with construction.
So the design phase is complete?
As Peter said, we should have the design completed by the 3rd quarter of this year. So we're very close on the design.
And one question, is that 75,000, is it broken down by hours and a rate per hour?
Yeah, so Mark Bueller charges $200 per hour. It's straight $200. There's no markup or overhead. And there's no, if we need him to come out, there's no travel expense associated with that. So it's a straight $200 per hour presently.
Have we used them before?
We have not had a contract that I know of with Mark Bueller in the past. So this would be the first.
Was he recommended to us, or how did we get a hold of him?
So we've been in contact with Mark for quite some time. He's done a lot of work on his own at no charge, kind of trying to advise Avek to go after different grant opportunities.
Okay.
And so we thought with the work that he's done for us to date with no charge, and his success rate in the past and his qualifications, we thought it'd be prudent to bring him on board.
How many miles will that pipeline be?
How many miles was that the question presently?
Yes.
Yeah, it's roughly 6.5 to 7 miles in length.
Okay, is there any further questions from Peter or Matt or staff? If not, we have a board.
Mr. President, this is Rob.
Yeah, yes, Rob.
Yeah, I move approval of board order 8C1.
Okay, we have a motion by Director, by Rob.
Director Miller seconds.
We have a second one by Director Miller. there's no further questions or comments, Madam Secretary, if we get a roll call.
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes, the motion carried, it's ordered. Keith, yeah, thank you much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, that'll, moving on, that'll move us to, item number D, High Desert, Water Bank. And Director Dias is chairman of that committee. Keith?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. The High Desert Water Bank Committee met on April 18th, and we received a monthly update on the High Desert Water Bank from Project Engineering Manager Livesey, and I believe he's present tonight to give us a similar presentation for the full board.
Thank you.
Yep, I am Director Dias. Thank you. Good evening, President Lane and members of the board. Brief monthly update for the High Desert Water Bank projects this evening. Starting here with our executive summary. It's been some time since we included this slide in the presentation, so we thought it'd be good to put this in and remind everybody about the objectives of the project and some of the key agreement principles. So goals of the project are recharge and recovery of up to 70,000 acre feet per year at the High Desert Water Bank with a direct pump back to the state water project, and an overall storage capacity goal of 280,000 acre feet. Of course, there is a one-time 10% loss leave behind at the time of storage. The agreement between Avek and Metropolitan, it's termed through 2037 with an option for a 20-year extension. Metropolitan has first priority right to all of the banking and recovery capacity in the project. And for that, they agreed to pay all capital costs as well as all operation, maintenance, replacement costs. Avek received second priority right to the banking capacity in the event that Metropolitan chooses not to use theirs. And Avek agrees to own and operate the project long-term. Avek also receives $100 per acre foot for each acre foot of water returned to the state water project for Metropolitan. And that number is escalated with CPI. It's close to $120 an acre foot today. Current status of the project, no banking is going on at the moment. Metropolitan is choosing not to bank at this time. With the current allocation at 40%, they have no plans to bank. So we'll have to see if there's a significant jump in allocation, maybe in May, maybe they will decide to do so, but does not appear to be on the horizon at the moment. And Avek is not using our second priority right in the bank at this time either, as we're prioritizing banking at the Westside Water Bank right now, where we have recovery capacity available. But to date, we've stored about 50,500 acre feet for Metropolitan, about 7,000 acre feet for Avek's use. Some recent activities on engineering. Stantec completed the 60% on-site electrical design package, and that's been under review by Kennedy Jenks, serving as our program manager and technical review consultant. They completed their technical review and returned those comments back to Stantec. Montgomery and Associates, you heard from on the line earlier today. They're continuing with their field oversight of the well drilling contractor as they complete the final 2 wells in drilling package number 3 that was added via change order. We've had some discussions with the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation and Metropolitan regarding some environmental requirements we need to do in order to comply with some federal grant funding that they recently agreed to receive. And we're working with SCE on the substation site plan that will ultimately bring the power supply out to the High Desert Water Bank. Budget slide here, nothing too exciting here. Everything is looking really good. We've committed about 50% of our budget to date. The majority of the remaining costs are within construction, but right now everything is tracking pretty good as far as the $211 million total project budget that we've set for this. So in good shape there. These categories are broken down into individual contracts here on this next slide. So looking here, everything is tracking very well. The far right-hand column is the percentage of work completed, and the column adjacent to that is the percentage of the contract paid. So in nearly every case, we're tracking under budget there. With regards to the 2 most recent construction projects, we're 100% paid out now on the recharge basins and conveyance pipeline project. but both the engineering support and the construction management on that are in the 80% range as far as paid out. So we'll be under budget on both of those. And then drilling package number 3, the contractor is about 90% paid, about 80% complete. And then the construction management's tracking about 60% paid. That one is most likely coming in under budget. And the field support is also about 60%. We do anticipate coming back to the board with an amendment for that. Since we added those 2 extra wells, we will need some additional field support. And although they're tracking under budget for the 8 wells, they will need some additional funds to complete the final 2. So we'll bring that back to the High Desert Water Bank Committee probably in May, and then to this board. As far as the capital program account, everything is tracking well there. We've got about $4 million in the bank account right now. Metropolitan has deposited about $106 million into that account for this project to date. We have 1 outstanding invoice to Metropolitan, which is due at the end of May, for about $1.6 million. As far as schedule goes, we've talked about this a little bit more detail with the High Desert Water Bank Committee, but for the benefit of the whole board, we're tracking completion now in 2028. So we're a little bit behind schedule, and the primary reasons for those delays are some decision points that Metropolitan Water District needs to make. The grant funding that they received has delayed letting new contracts out to bid while we do the environmental work that I mentioned previously. And of course, their decision on the treatment facility or an alternative pipeline is still up in the air. So we're waiting on that, but there could be some impacts on the final design for the well equipping and recovery that come into play with that. So we need them to make that decision before we can make some significant progress here. Because of that, we are delayed a little bit behind the SCE power construction at this time. Regarding construction, we have 1 active project. That's drilling package number 3. I mentioned they're on the final 2 wells out there, and they're getting into the mechanical and pump development phases of completing those. So probably just a few weeks out, maybe from really being completed with that, well ahead of their late July contracted completion date. Just one other item. I know General Manager Knudsen sent an email to the board, but the SCE claim that was against Avek for some grading work that was done by Nicholas Construction during the berm construction process, that's been successfully resolved. We were able to negotiate a reduced fee from Southern California Edison. The contractor agreed to pay that out of their retention. So we paid Southern California Edison, and they released all claims against Avek and the contractor, and we deducted that amount from the contractor's retention. So, yeah, that was a successful resolution on that.
Who negotiated that? So
I did that.
Good job.
Yeah, thank you. And final slide for the update, just a reminder, I mentioned this already, but one future board action item will be an amendment for the well drilling package number 3 field oversight. And once we get a final proposal in from the engineering team, we'll bring that to the committee for review and then ultimately back to the board. And that's it for the monthly update at this time, unless anybody has any questions.
So I had a question. When
Sure.
we bring those 29 wells into service, is the board aware that they still need holes and all the pumping, let the board know.
Right. Yeah. Good point, Director Van Dam. So the wells that are currently drilled out there are just holes in the ground with casing. There are no mechanical components, no pumps, no motors, no bowls installed, and that's all part of the future well equipping and recovery package. So that's when the contractor will be hired to come in and set all the pumps and motors, as well as all the electrical equipment to operate those wells, connect them to SCADA, and all the small diameter pipelines to connect the recovery wells into the main backbone out there.
Now, will that be done through Bakersfield Well and Pump, or we go to bid on that?
That'll go out to competitive bid.
Okay, if there's no further questions, we thank you. Good report.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, there's no action item. This is for information only. Now we'll move down to item number 6, Water Master Committee. And Director Paris is chairman of that committee.
Yes, Mr. President, I will turn this over to our general manager, Matt.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Director Paris. So in your board packet beginning on page 70 is a brief memo that Angel helped put together to hit kind of the highlights of what we feel is important topics that will be discussed and voted on tomorrow at the Water Master meeting. And then attached to the memo is the actual agenda for tomorrow's Water Master meeting, as well as the written report from the advisory committee. So I'll hit the highlights. First item, seems like deja vu here, but we're still talking about the Water Master Administrator. And so there was no action taken at the last Water Master Board meeting, but it's on the on the agenda tomorrow to have more discussion. Craig Parton, the general counsel for the Water Master, did prepare a memo kind of outlining some various options the Water Master Board could take. And those include continuing with the current MOU we have in place between Avek and the Water Master. We could make an amendment to that MOU to define a specific term for the services. Or we could go out for another RFP and seek proposals from Avek and other consulting firms that may be interested in providing the service. So my recommendation to staff, same as last month, is we just go into the meeting on Wednesday and let Director Paris listen to what the concerns of the other board members are and kind of see if we can reach a consensus to move this along. I, as well as you all, would like this to be resolved one way or the other so we can get out of this pattern of just continuing to talk about it. Another item, if you have time to listen into the meeting tomorrow, it'd be good to hear the conversation regarding draft carryover storage agreement template. And this is going to be discussed by the general counsel as well as the Water Master engineer. Legal counsel did put together a template of a storage agreement that was discussed in length with the advisory committee. A lot of various parties have concerns over the current approach. So I think it needs more work on developing this template. Next slide, please. And then there are a few applications. There's 4 new production applications, all of which are for single family homes. You can see the first one there is for 1 acre foot per year. And the advisory committee did not approve that. It was voted down 5 yes, 6 no's. And they had concerns about the difference between the property size, which is roughly 6 acres, and the small quantity of water requested. I think they had listed on there 20 trees and some farm animals, as well as the home. So I think those were the reasons why it was, the advisory committee requested more information. The next 3 were all approved 11-0 by the advisory committee. You can see the quantities of water are pretty small there, between 0.25 acre feet per year and 1 acre foot. So my recommendation to our representative is to also approve those bottom 3, and then kind of hear tomorrow from the advisory committee what their concerns were, and possibly request additional information and table that item. Then down at the bottom, less than 0.25 acre feet per year. This is a non-production well, and it's for testing purposes. And that that item did get recommended for approval 11-0 by the advisory committee. Next slide, please. And then there are a few transfers, some one-time transfers, and then some permanent transfers with the combination of one-time transfers. You can see the quantities listed there. The advisory committee did approve or recommend approval of each of these. The middle one with Gary Godey, I believe the one abstention was because Gary Godey abstained from voting on that. So that's why it was approved 10-0-1. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions you have on the recommendations, but on these items, I do recommend that Director Paris approve each of these transfers.
I had a question, Matt, or a thought. This is Director Van Dam. I think instead of trying to cut return flows, carryover rights, we could cut return flows instead. What's your thought on that?
I think we need more information. I wouldn't want to jump to that conclusion quite yet. I would recommend that we listen to Water Master Engineer and see what they come up with first, and see what the data supports when it comes to any reductions.
Gary, this is Rob. What we could do tomorrow is that, I think this probably came up somewhat in the advisory committee. We could ask that our engineer provide us the information of how much carryover is actually carryover from production rights and how much is the carryover from return flows, so that we can have a discussion about that very topic. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I like that idea. I think we need to visit that. I know that we're talking now about the storage agreement. I believe we're coming into year 10 now, and these carryover right holders are a little bit worried about their carryover going away. I think maybe we focus on the return flows, and I think we just look at all our options, Rob.
Yeah, I agree with that. And so if we start with looking at what, how much carryover is from return flows, how much carryover is from production, people holding their production water, that would be a good first step, I think. And if you'd like, I'll make that request for you.
Yes, could you please?
I will be happy to.
That would be good.
Thank you.
Good question, Van Dam.
There was one item that, when it was being withdrawn, new production application being revoked. What was that?
Are you looking at item 16A on the Water Master agenda?
Yeah, 17, let me see. 17A, new summary, new production. No, I'm looking up, but I read it.
Or maybe it was 16B. Maybe that's the item.
Yeah. 16B.
I could try to fumble my way through it, but Angel or Peter, do you guys want to respond to Director Lane on that item?
Sure thing. So as part of the rules and regulations, if a new producer has not responded to the Water Master and produced production reports, then they're supposed to have their application or their new production right revoked. And so the administration staff is putting together a list of all those who have not responded, and we've consulted with Craig Parton, and those applications will all be revoked as of tomorrow.
Thank you.
Matt, this is Keith. Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course, Keith.
Regarding on this slide, the first transfer request, do I understand that Mettler Valley Mutual Water Company is transferring 47.37 acre feet to the RECAs?
No.
No, it's the other way. It's from the Recas to Metler Valley.
That makes sense. I misunderstood the titles.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. And just to follow on that, Metler does not have a production right to meet their production or their water demand needs. So they've historically been doing these one-time transfers in lieu of paying a replacement water obligation.
Yes, I thought they had been short in prior years as well.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and they're a good little mutual water company. They've been very responsive and cooperative with the water master. So.
Matt, are they a party to the judgment?
Angel, are you there? Or Pete, do you know off the top of your head if they're a party? I think they are because they have to get a transfer.
Matt, they were actually a defaulted party to the judgment, and they were required to apply for new production with the water master to continue pumping.
Yeah, so the short answer is yes. So.
There's a board order on this. I don't know if it's required or not. Matt, do you have any suggestion?
I don't think we need a board order as long as the full board is in agreement with the recommendations I made.
I think we agree to that. Hearing nothing contrary.
Okay, thank you.
And I have my directions, so we're good, George. Mr. President, thank you.
Sounds good. Okay, is there anything more on the Water Master Committee?
Mr. President, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you much. We'll move on to the next item number 9, General Manager's Report. Matt, that goes to you.
Thank you, President Lane, and I'll turn it over to Peter to talk about the first few slides, and then I'll continue with the GM report. So.
All right, thank you, Matt. Holly, could you advance the slide? All right, so we just wanted to give a quick update on the water year. It is kind of a tale of two watersheds. So in that first graphic on the left there, you have the Northern Sierra precipitation. So all the rainfall that's fallen to date since the beginning of the water year in October. So we're above average, and that's great. So 114% of average in the Northern Sierras. As you move to the right, to the San Joaquin precipitation, you can see that we're below average. We're at 72% of normal. And that's why we've had really low flows on the San Joaquin River. And that's why we've had less than optimal pumping into St. Louis this year. All right, let's move on. So what we are starting off with is really good reservoir levels. So if you look at Lake Oroville, we are at 92% of full and almost 120% of average for this time of year. So really good entering into the summer. That'll mean that there will be plenty of water for releases, and as long as we get some decent flows on the San Joaquin, we'll be able to pull water and put it in San Luis. And also, if you look at that bottom reservoir there, that's San Luis Reservoir, we can see we almost maxed out. We're at 87% of capacity, and we're going to just be drafting. It'll be coming down from now on through the rest of the year. But there was a little bit of worry about spill, but that is now passed. All right, go ahead, Holly. So then the other piece to the puzzle is the snow pack. And again, the good news is up north, and the bad news is in the central and south. So good news up north is we're at 98% of typical for this time of year. So good average snowpack in the Northern Sierras. And that's what's going to keep water flowing into Lake Oroville this summer. The less than optimal news is that we have about 80% of typical snowpack in the Central Sierras and pretty dismal snowpack in the Southern Sierras. So that could mean that we continue to have lower flows on the San Joaquin as we move through the year. It's because of that low precipitation and that lower snowpack in the Central Sierras that we probably will see only a modest bump to the allocation in April. I'm estimating anywhere between 5 to 10%. But then we'll see. Hopefully runoff patterns are good, and we can see an additional increase in May. And that concludes these slides. But we're happy to answer any questions you might have.
I had a question. How come Metropolitan's not banking with this much water?
I think my understanding is Metropolitan is looking to sell some of their excess water this year because they've been able to bank in previous years, and so I think it's a cash flow opportunity for them that they're looking at. All right, well, that concludes those slides, and I'll turn it back over to you, Matt.
All right, just a quick update on the Division 3 director vacancy, kind of the timeline. Holly did a good job posting everything to meet the requirements back on March 26th. We exceeded the requirement, posted at 6 locations. We received 2 applications to date. That period closed on April 10th at 5 p.m. The ad hoc committee met yesterday with the 2 candidates, and they are scheduled to interview with the full board on April 29th. So a week from today at 9 a.m. That is a special meeting in person. And the board needs to make a decision by May 24th based on the memo provided by legal counsel to meet all the requirements. And that date of May 24th is tied to when former director Donato resigned from the Avek board. And then once we do make an appointment or a selection, we have 15 days from that point to notify the county elections official. So this slide, we just wanted to provide an update to the full board, and not much there. We can go to the next slide. Next slide is just an update. It's that time every 5 years, AVAC has to go through and update our, what we call urban water management plan. And this is a requirement. There's 2 sections of the water code that talks about this requirement, and every urban water supplier that either provides over 3,000 acre feet per year or serves more than 3,000 urban connection is required to go through this process. The last one we went through was in 2020. And like I said, it's a state requirement. Next slide, please. So in order to get this process started, staff put together a request for proposals. We distributed that on April 2nd to 5 firms, including posting it on the website, AVAC's website. And those proposals are due on May 2nd. So coming up here in a week or so. And we plan to present the proposals to the planning committee and the full board sometime in May. And then that urban water management plan update is due to DWR by July 1st of 2026. So we have a little over a year to complete this work, but it does take a lot of effort to coordinate with our retail water agencies like LA County Waterworks and Court Sill and all the mutuals to coordinate projected water demands and include that data into the urban water management plan update. So no action, obviously. I just wanted to update the board on where we're at in that process. Next slide. So as you know, we had the presentation from the USGS last meeting, and I was hoping they were going to kind of get into show the board how you can access the data that they're collecting. So all of the groundwater level data collected by the USGS under our agreement through the Water Master is accessible by the public through a public website. And we're going to show that here in a minute. The groundwater level data is updated every spring and fall based on the well sounding schedule by the USGS. And that data is used by the water master engineer to update the groundwater model and also prepare the various exhibits and tables that are within the water master's annual report that we submit to the courts based on the judgment. So I'm not sure who's controlling the website, either Angel or Pete, if you could go. So and I'll send this link out to the full board, but this is a website USGS put together, and you can click on groundwater levels or groundwater sites. And then if you click on the active sites, it'll populate all of the well locations within the Antelope Valley. And you can, so that well right there looks like it's pretty close to the High Desert Water Bank, just east of the High Desert Water Bank. So if you click on that well and then access data, it will pop you, and then you click on the field groundwater level measurements. And scroll down, you can see the historical depth to groundwater for that particular well. And each of those plots are the spring and fall collection points. So this is kind of interesting because you can see they started collecting data around 1994, and there was a slight rise. But then if you look at year 2024, there was a big jump. I don't know if you could see that on your graph there. It spikes up. And if you remember from Justin's High Desert Water Bank report, we banked quite a bit of water at High Desert Water Bank in 2024 because that was a wet year, or 2023 and 2024. And you could see the big spike in the rise in depth and water level there. Wow. So it's pretty interesting. So again, I can send the link out to the website, but it's a useful tool that we can use at Avek, and other parties to the judgment can access and look at historical groundwater levels. And there's a bigger view there of showing all of the active wells that are measured every spring and fall.
Those are only the monitored wells.
Yeah, those are the wells that are monitored as part of the USGS program. So I thought it was beneficial to show this since we just had that presentation from USGS. This is the real value in the data that they collect. Any questions on that? No? All right. So we can go back to the presentation. And then Ben Melendez, who works with Justin in our engineering department, he put together this map and some following graphs. So we wanted to show the board what's going on at AVAC specific facilities. So on the map, you can see the aqueduct, all of our West Feeder pipeline, all of the potable systems, and you can see the various water banks are labeled on the map. So we got from left to right, we got High Desert Water Bank, the West Side Water Bank, we got 80th Street West and Avenue H monitoring site. We also have some recovery wells or production wells at 80th Street West and Avenue H. And then we got the East Side Water Bank. So if we go to the next slide, we'll first look at High Desert Water Bank. And here, this is data that AVAC staff collects on a monthly basis at the monitoring wells. This one is High Desert Water Bank, and you can see the same trend that we saw in the USGS graph. So this goes back to January of 2020. Again, you can see the rise in water level because of all the banking that we were doing in 23 and 24. Go to the next slide. This is one of the wells at the West Side Water Bank. So this goes through a pattern. You can see in January 2020, it was pretty high. Then we experienced the drought of 21 and 22. And so we were doing no water banking during that time frame, and we were in heavy pumping or recovery mode. So you could see the dip in groundwater level, and then we backed off in 2023 because it was a wet water year, and we started banking. So you can see the rise again. So thought this was pretty interesting. Next slide. This is at the Bench Ranch monitoring well. So we have a few groundwater production wells there at 80th Street West and Avenue H. And there's no banking directly associated with these wells. But what you do see is kind of a similar trend in 2020 and 2021, or I'm sorry, 21 and 22. There's a slight dip in the groundwater level. And then in 2023, we backed off on utilizing these wells, and the water level came back just naturally. Next slide. Last one is our East Side Water Bank. Very similar pattern. You can see before the drought, water level was pretty high, and then there's a slight dip in 2021 and 2022, and we've seen a recovery of that because we've been strictly banking there and not doing any recovery. So hopefully that was good information. Any questions on any of those slides? Good information.
And I had a question. It looks like the water table's actually coming up then. That 300,000 acre feet that they said we were in a deficit of, is that in the Central Basin?
I think Pete can correct me here, but the number that you threw out there is basin wide. It's not specific to one sub area or not. It's throughout the whole groundwater basin.
Right.
Yeah. And what we're showing you here, Gary, is just wells associated with Avek's banking facilities. So why we're seeing the rise here is because we've been banking pretty heavily the last couple years.
Right. Well, what I thought that would offset, that material harm issue.
Yeah, and that, just to clarify, the water that Avek banks in the groundwater basin is not factored into that $300,000 or 300,000 acre feet deficit that the water master mentioned.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you let the water master know that?
Yeah. I think the engineer knows for sure.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.
Will do, Gary.
All right, next slide. And just last slide for me is upcoming events. We have Water Master meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. at Avek and on Zoom. We have the special board meeting next Tuesday at 9 a.m. That's only in person. Avek special board meeting on May 6th at 5:30. That was rescheduling the regular meeting because of Aqua conference. And that Aqua conference is the week of the 13th. And we have myself and Director Paris are going, as well as Peter Thompson. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions. Thank you.
Just to clarify, Matt, we also have the special meeting on May 1st that was scheduled, right?
Yeah, that's a good point. Thank you, Director
that
Mercy. Yeah, and I think that just came out today or so. So yeah, I forgot to include that in this slide.
Thank you.
Yep.
Matt, I had a question. Can you go into a little bit what happened today, or is that for closed door session?
Oh yeah, that's closed session. That's going to be item 13A. Okay.
Okay, Matt, thank you. Does that conclude your report?
It does. Thank you, President Lane.
We'll move on to item number 12, request for future agenda items.
I think we're at
excuse me, director's reports.
So I had director's report on the Poppy Festival coming up, be this weekend, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then April 30th, we have I believe we have the auction. That's Wednesday. Correct, Drew?
Yes. Yeah, Wednesday, not Thursday like it has been in the past.
Okay, so April 30th this Wednesday.
Yep.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, anything further, item number 10, director's reports?
I just want to add, I was, I'm sorry I wasn't able to be here when the kids came in, but I got several of the letters from them, and it just speaks to how well that program is run. Very well written letters, and reminds me of my 4-H days.
Well, that's good to hear. Okay, moving on, we'll have attorney report.
This is Tilden Kim. Nothing to report, President Lane.
Okay, request for future agenda items, item number 12. Okay, we'll go into closed session, so we need a motion for closed session.
Mr. President, this is Director Miller. I'll move to go into closed session.
I'll second.
Okay, Director Miller, motion, second Director Mercy. Madam Secretary?
Audrey Miller,
Yes.
Robert Paris,
Yes.
Keith Dias,
Yes.
Drew Mercy,
Yes.
Gary Van Dam,
Yes.
George Lane.
Yes. Motion carried, so ordered. Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break and
And this is Tilden Kim. I'm recused from the closed session item, so I'm signing off for tonight.
Thank you, Tilden.
Right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Recording stopped.